we understand that Jesus Christ came to earth, and who was he? Who was he? God incarnate. God himself came to earth. Are we to follow his example, or are we not to follow his example? What do you think? Follow it. It's not that difficult of a question, okay? Follow his example. And Jesus himself said, the things I do, I don't do without my Father's permission. Everything I see my Father do, I do. Okay, so he is God's example to us here on earth. And we somehow think that we get this wrong image of who Jesus is and what we are supposed to be doing here on earth. So, bear with me on this. Who is the image of God in this room? Every Christian, every believer, every person actually. We are made in his image. We are God's image. And when I say God's image at war, I literally mean you. I literally mean Darren. And James. And Randy. And Helena. God's image at war. You guys sitting in this room at war. And thank you, Darren, for the Sunday school lesson this morning. What we believe changes everything. But truth never changes. What we believe has no effect on truth. So if we aren't lining up our belief system with truth, it is a wrong belief. Is that correct? Okay. All right. So we are at war. I will tell you a lot of what I am going to be sharing today I got from a man by the name of John Eldredge. John Eldredge wrote the book Wild at Heart. Love the book. I would encourage especially each young man and young woman, it's more about men, to read the book Wild at Heart. Now, I don't agree with everything he promotes in the book, of course. I don't know if I ever will with anybody. Okay, he encourages us to watch the movies that please, I would encourage you not to. Okay, but so between the book Wild at Heart and also the book by John Eldredge, Beautiful Outlaw. Beautiful Outlaw. It takes the life of Jesus Christ and says, this is what it looked like in that day and age. And quite frankly, Jesus Christ was considered an outlaw. Do you realize how many laws of the day he broke? It was an insane amount of laws that he was just like, you guys are missing the point here. I'm serious. You know, and we'll be going through some of those today. So I would encourage you guys to pick up and read the book, Beautiful Outlaw by John Eldredge. James chapter 4 says, from whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence? Even of your lust that war in your members. We are at war. Our lusts that war in our members. How about even our belief systems that war in our members? Ye lust and have not, ye kill and desire to have and cannot obtain, ye fight and war, yet ye have not because ye ask not. Ye ask and receive not because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lusts. Now we had at the shop just a couple weeks ago, we had someone there to do some general maintenance on our alignment machine, and just soon running out of warranty, so he came and just made sure everything was working properly and so forth and so on the alignment machine. And while he was there, he said, hey, he said, how about your tire machine and balancer? Is that working okay? Long out of warranty. We bought that years and years ago. Okay, long out of warranty. He said, is that working okay? I said, well, the balancer, has a couple of problems. The one button doesn't work quite right, and we were actually considering buying a different tire balancer or upgrading, because we figured getting it fixed is going to be expensive. But he said, okay, I'll take a look at it. He went over and took a look at it, and he goes, oh yeah, it's just this keyboard right here. I happen to have one out on the truck. What? What are the chances of that? We got the machine fixed for like $65 or something like that. We didn't have to pay the service call for him to come out. He was already out. It was absolutely phenomenal. And he's a believer. He's a Christian man, does service work. And I said, wow, that was absolutely amazing. He said, well, you have not because you ask not. You're very right. He said, so I figured I'd ask. Wow. And I wonder how many times in life we miss something because we just don't ask. And God says, you have not because you ask not. Or you're asking amiss because you want it for your own desires and your own lusts. Okay, so there is a war that we are involved in. An absolute war. And there's a war going on right now, especially for young men. Because God created young men different than young women. Is that true? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, it's true. Okay, we have young men who, when we're watching young men play, they play differently than young women. Young men typically want to blow something up. All right? It's true. You watch a young boy play, you want to blow something up. Okay? You want to do something dangerous. I remember when I was young, I wanted to fly. Not fly like Clayton flies in an airplane, because that's too mechanical. Okay? I wanted to fly. Just me. And I had this goal of flying. Just me. And I remember having my sister climb up on this little shed that we built, and I put a 2x4 across the fulcrum, I guess, I don't know, another piece of wood that was, 4 foot off the ground or something. And I sat on the one end of the 2x4, and I told her to jump off the shed onto the 2x4. Because I figure if I get launched, I'd stay launched. Okay, that's how young boys think. And I was pretty little. And my sister chickened out, thank the Lord, could not actually jump off of the shed onto the 2x4. We would have both been very sore if that would have happened. She stepped onto the board from something the same height, and we just kind of went, it was kind of boring. But we do crazy things as young men. We do crazy things. And I believe that God, in His creativity, designed us to be different. We have boys who they're playing their games and they want to shoot something, they want to blow something up, they want to do something destructive. Girls are coddling their doll. They're nurturing. They're taking care of something, and it's what God placed in their heart. And the boy comes along and he hangs it all upside down or whatever it is and shakes it around. And he is not saying, I don't like the doll, I don't like your nurturing heart. What he is saying is, I'm not like that. That's not who I am. And then he goes and he throws it out the window or something. I don't know. And then the girl screams and cries because their dolly got hurt. We're made different. We're made different. And we have this idea that we want our young men to be safe all the time. All the time. Especially from moms. And I love moms. I love you guys a lot. You guys are phenomenal nurturers and caretakers, and we need you. But when your son is about ready to do something dangerous, unless it's going to have some major consequences, let him do it. Let him do it, because they need to learn. But right now we kind of have this idea that boys, oh no, don't do that. Oh, and we want to protect them and keep them safe every step of the way. Oh, don't do it. We want to build a fence around them. Oh, don't do that. Oh, don't play with that. Oh, that's going to hurt you if you do that. And I appreciate it when I see boys in casts, okay? I know I don't like seeing you get hurt, but it means that your parents are allowing you to do dangerous things. Because if your parents allow you to do dangerous things right now, you are going to do dangerous things later on in life for God's glory. And you're going to be willing to take on a battle later on in life for God's glory. Battles that really matter. But if we're constantly saying, no, we don't enter into that, we don't play like that, put that gun down, whatever it is, okay? Whatever. Later on in life, they're going to be like, no, I don't enter into battle. And we want our boys to be kind of like a McDonald's burrito. I've eaten plenty of McDonald's burritos, okay? But every time I order a McDonald's burrito, and I pick up the package, and there's this little limp, skinny thing in my hand, and I'm like, really, McDonald's? Can't you do any better? Yeah, it's called a burrito. I guess it's in the shape of a burrito, but it's just kind of blah. So you got to add a bunch of stuff to it to make it a little bit better, make it at least a little tolerable. But we want our young men to be safe and calm and collected. And one of the things that John Eldridge says is we want our boys to be really nice guys. Okay? Just really nice guys. And there's nothing wrong with being a really nice guy, except for everything's wrong with it. Because God didn't create us to just cower around everything. God created men, especially, and women, to have color and life and vibrance. Because I like Sheetz burritos. You get the Sheetz Burrito Grande. Okay, now I couldn't find a good picture of how I make it, because the Grande burrito from Sheetz, if you have the two tacos or tortillas, whatever they are, and you have the cheese between them, okay, and then you put your steak and I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. I need breakfast, okay? You get your steak and your eggs and your guacamole and your lettuce and your onion and your tomato and sour cream and hot sauce, and the poor person behind the counter, because I have clicked on that button everything that's free. Okay? If I have to pay extra, I don't usually do it. But everything is free. Clicked everything. So I got diced tomatoes and sliced tomatoes. I got diced onions and sliced onions because it's all free. So I add all this stuff all the way down through. And the poor person behind the counter is trying to get it all in one burrito. And when you get that bag, you pick up that bag when they call your name, and you're like, ho, ho, ho. Now that's heavy. That's a burrito. And I don't think I've ever completely finished one. Because they're so big, and I love them. But that's the way God created us, and that's the way God created life, to have this variety and this color, and it's good. It's good. And when we squelch, especially our young men, squelch them and saying, here's this box you need to stay in, and we never cross beyond these boundaries, it does something to our young men, and it's not good. It's not good. And let me throw this disclaimer out there. I'm not saying, I'm not picking on any one person here, because I love how you guys raise and train your children. I love you guys have raised and trained young men who are daring and willing to do dangerous things. I love that. Appreciate that. One another example of the difference between young men and young women. Okay, this next slide, every young man in here, I'm fairly certain every young man from maybe 5 and up will know what this is. Okay, we heard chuckles. Okay, Jonathan, what is that? Yes, it's an exploding target. It's something called tannerite. I see grins on almost every man's face in here. And exploding. What? I don't care what it is. If it explodes, this is great. And we've shot at a few of these things at our shop already, and they make quite a boom. You know, we watch YouTube videos about people putting them in refrigerators and cars and shooting at them. Okay? It's amazing what it is. That's guys. Girls, you're like, okay, exploding target. What's the big deal? It's not really what I think of as fun. So it explodes, so it goes boom. Okay, there's a big difference. Big difference. Men, moms and dads, let your sons shoot a tannerite. You know, it's great. Don't do it too often, it's pretty expensive. But it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. So I would like you to think of your own lives and where you're at in your own life right now. Because of the creativity of God in each one of our lives, I would like you to describe your life with one word. One word. Joyful, peaceful, content, happy, disappointed, sad, trapped, unconventional, whatever that word is. Think of that one word, how you would describe your life right now. And I know, some people will have a harder time thinking of this word than others. So there's good news, okay? If all my technology works correctly, which I'm praying that it does, we're going to send a text message and it's going to come up on the screen here after a little bit. Unfortunately, there's only 10 people that can send it up here because the free version only allows me 10 people to do it. And I actually tried paying for the full version this morning and my bank rejected it, thought it was a scam or whatever, and so I can't actually buy it till tomorrow. But whatever. So, if you would like to participate, okay. You can barely see it down there. Well, that's not going to work. It's run out of time. I waited too long till it comes up. So we're going to skip that. I was going to have you describe your life with one word and put it up on the screen. Is there anybody in here who would care to share out loud? Now I know it may be difficult. So if you don't want to, that's fine. Is there anybody who would care to share what you wrote down and what you thought of, your word for your life in one word? John? Incomplete. Okay. Somebody else? Confused. Okay. Anybody else? Exciting. Okay. Someone else? Content. Okay. Blessed. All right. What's that? Amazing. Okay. Anybody else? Growing. Very good. Anybody else? Interesting. Okay. Someone else? All right. I will venture to say that the vast majority of the people who did not share, maybe I'm wrong, but the people who did not share, other than those who are very vulnerable, shared something negative, the rest of us would come up with a different word. I asked several people the same question yesterday, and when they were completely honest, they came up with different words. trapped, meh, finished. And yes, there are some that content, blessed, and that is good. But what I want us to see here is that we are at war. And there are people sitting in this room that are warring every day. And there are people sitting in this room who look at those people that are warring and just say, well, I don't know what to do about it. So I'll pray for you. It's happening. And we take a very passive approach to war for each other. Very passive approach. Jesus Christ was the image of God, the personality of God. He was the man who we can look at Jesus Christ and say, this is what God is like. Okay? One of the reasons where, Larry usually asks, when children leave the door open in his house, he asks quite often, were you born in a barn? You've asked that, right, Dad? Okay, quite often. Okay, to which my response usually is, sure, why not? I'm just trying to be more Christ-like. Because Jesus was. You can't ask the question, okay? Because Jesus was born in a barn, so we're just trying to be more Christ-like. Leaving the door open, fine. Okay? We're just trying to be like, we want to be like Jesus. And God created Jesus with a personality that sometimes is hilarious. I'm serious. Sometimes it's hilarious. We think of Jesus as this very stoic, come ye thou unto me type of person. And that's not who he was. Not at all who he was. We look at creation itself, and creation says God has a sense of humor. I look at some of the people in this room and I say, yes, God has a sense of humor. Have you ever seen an ostrich? God has a sense of humor. Let's see if this will work. There. He has a sense of humor. Ostriches are hilarious. What kind of God would create something that looks like that? That's our God. He has a huge sense of humor. He says, hey, we're going to make this bird that can't fly. It runs, sleeps with its head in the ground, long neck. That's amazing. How about a hippo? Sense of humor, God written all over that guy. Massive body, tiny little tail. I find this stuff hilarious. I really do. How about cats? Cats are funny. Cats will do some crazy things. We have cats at our house, and they do some strange things at times. And you watch a cat and you laugh. And there is something that God placed inside of us that says, this is good to laugh at it. Because it's funny. It's good to laugh at it. And God has created us with a sense of humor, and it was modeled through Jesus Christ. This thing's really struggling today. Modeled through Jesus Christ. Let's turn to John chapter 21. It's not coming up on the thing. My technology has been fighting me all morning. I will just tell you that. John chapter 21. Starting in verse 1. This is, remember, after Jesus was crucified, after he walked out of the tomb, some 7 to 9 days later, something like that. It says, after these things, Jesus showed himself again unto the disciples of the Sea of Tiberias, and on this wise he showed himself. There were together Simon Peter, and Thomas called Didymus, and Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other of his disciples. Simon Peter saith unto them, I go a-fishing. Now, okay, this is God's disciples, Jesus' disciples, who Jesus said, these are the men that I'm going to use to change the world. He's crucified. They see him a couple of times, once, twice, and they're like, I'm out of here. I'm going back to fishing. These are the men, young men. We're going fishing. And they said unto him, we also go with thee. They went forth and entered into a ship immediately, and that night caught nothing. Now, okay, we set the scene a little bit. Some of you guys have heard me talk about this years ago already, and then I read it in the book of the Beautiful Outlaw. First person I ever heard of, besides myself, who found this story hilarious. Okay? Everybody else is like, ooh, serious story. It's funny. God has a sense of humor. Okay? So we have these guys who are tired. They're just got done, denying Jesus. Peter did, and they're just discouraged. And now they can't even find Jesus half the time. He's just kind of here and there. And what do? We're going back to our old familiar way of life. And here these guys, young men. Okay, they're like young guys, like Ben and Joshua. These guys' age. Arthur, Nate, Clayton. Your age. And we're going to go fishing. So they get back in this boat that they were familiar with. And they go fishing. And they're casting nets. They didn't have fishing poles. They're casting nets. And they're doing this all night long. And I can only imagine that young guys, you get 7 of them here, in the boat together. Grumpy, moody, tired, feeling disappointed. They're not going to be sitting there going, hey, isn't this a great night for fishing? Let's pull that thing back in again. Okay, Clayton, it's your turn this time. Oh, can I have a turn next? They're not doing that. They're throwing the net out, probably half angry at each other. You just hit me with the net! Stop it! Pulling the net back in. And these guys, remember, for 3 years, they hadn't been fishing, so their hands aren't calloused anymore like they used to be. So they're pulling the net back in, and they're getting frustrated, and they're getting angry, and their hands are sore, getting some blisters on them, maybe even bleeding, and they're frustrated with each other, and they just want some fish. It says they fished all night. It says, but when the morning was come, it says they fished all night, and they caught nothing. Absolutely nothing. So these young men who are threatening to throw Peter overboard by now, about guarantee it. Peter's like, come on, guys, we can do this. They're like, we can't do this. We're going to throw you over and see if we can catch you with the net. That's how guys think, okay? That's how we act. That's how we respond. That's how we think, okay? We're going to chuck you. We won't leave you in there forever. We'll catch you with the net later on, okay? After you've taken a few gallons of water. That's kind of how we think. Okay. But, verse 4, but when morning was come, Jesus stood on the shore, and the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. Now, we get this kind of image in our minds, that a good, polite, creepy religious Jesus, okay, would stand on the shore and say, come thou unto me and follow me. We kind of get that picture. That's what Jesus was doing. But he wasn't like that. Here's what he yelled out. Hey, did you catch anything? Now, men, be honest. When we've gone fishing and we've caught nothing, which has happened to all of us, and somebody comes walking past our boat or up on the dock or whatever, and they see us with our fishing poles, and they say, did you catch anything? It is not a good feeling. if we're going for large fish, okay, we're going for large fish and we can't catch those, you know what we'll do as men? We'll put a small hook and a worm on, fish really close to the shore so that we can catch something small. So that we can say, when somebody says, did you catch anything? Yeah, but I threw them back. Serious. We caught some, threw them back. So Jesus, hey, you catch anything? That's funny. Jesus is rubbing this in. And these guys are like, didn't know who he was. Ignore him. I can imagine Peter. Just ignore him. Guys, ignore him. Don't pound him quite yet. Ignore him. And they answered him, no. That's also how guys think. You know, my wife, she'll text Ben sometimes and she'll say something, this nice long text. Can you do this? Can you do that? Whatever. I'm proud of you. I'm praying for you. Yada, yada. Have a great time on your trip or whatever it is. Guess what Ben will send back? The thumbs up. Enough said, right? Sometimes as men, not all men are like this, but a lot of men are just no. Just going to give you a short answer. Nothing a whole lot more. But then Jesus says something to him. He says, hey, you know what? I know what's wrong. I know why you're not catching any fish. How about you guys try casting your net on the other side of the boat? Jesus has a sense of humor. And I'm sure Peter and the guys are like, just don't, guys, leave him alone. Don't say a word. This guy is obviously out of his mind because it's the same water on one side of the boat as it is on the other, and he doesn't know that. She's just antagonizing him. And somewhere along the line, Peter's like, guys, just humor this guy. Just humor him. Throw the net on the other side just to make him happy. Just to prove to him there's nothing over there either. And when they throw it on the other side, what happens? All of a sudden, this net gets so full that they couldn't pull it in. And then it dawns on them. The same thing happened 3 years ago. When Jesus was standing on the shore teaching some people, and he needed to borrow our boat. You remember that, Peter? Just imagine John saying, remember that, Peter? When Jesus needed to borrow our boat when we first met him? And we had fished all night, we didn't catch anything, and we were tired. And we said, sure, you can use our boat and speak from our boat. And after a while, he told us, let's go fishing. And we said, no. 3 years earlier. Just to humor him, we said, okay. Do you remember what happened? The same thing. And John said, Peter, that's the Lord. That's Jesus. Now, Jesus could have come up to him and just says, hey, come thou unto me. But he didn't. He was colorful. He was a colorful character. I love it. Then we have Jesus. Well, there's a bunch more stories, and we'll just skip those for the sake of time. But he's just one. Okay, Jesus. You remember when he was first starting his ministry, and he was at the wedding, and his mom came to him and said, "Hey, Jesus, they're out of wine. I'd like you to do something." And Jesus says, "Hey, woman, it's not my time." And we look at that and we think, "Whoa, Jesus was disrespectful. Jesus was rude." But somehow, and he wasn't, and I don't really understand all of what the relationship looked like, but I know it was good because Jesus cared for his mom. He loved his mom. One of the last things he said on the cross was, "John, take care of my mom." So he loved his mom to no end. And somehow, Jesus said, "Woman, why are you asking me this? It's not my time." And somehow, Mary understood, "Sure, I'll help." Somehow, because the next thing she said was, "Hey guys, just do whatever he tells you to do." So they did. Took all these pots of water, and they filled them up, and Jesus said, hey, go give them to the master of the house, and it turned into 908 bottles of wine. That would get you kicked out of most churches today. I am dead serious. You show up at a wedding and you provide 908 bottles of wine, you're out of here. Guarantee it wouldn't go over in our fellowship meal. Guarantee it. And you know what? I find it hilarious because we have people sitting here arguing over this today. Was that alcoholic wine or wasn't it alcohol? I find that hilarious. I find that as God's sense of humor. We'll give them something to discuss. If they want to discuss something pointless, here, discuss this. Part of God's sense of humor. And then in John chapter 2, we have Jesus right after the whole wine and wedding thing, actually. We have Jesus with a couple of his disciples. And John chapter 2, verse 13. And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem and found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves and the changers of the money sitting there. And we know the story, but have we ever really read the story? Because we know that Jesus overturned the tables of the money changers, and he got upset. And somehow we think that Jesus was just this really nice guy. But it says in verse 15, and when he had made a scourge of small cords, when he sat down, took a bunch of cords, took the time to make a whip. Jesus made a weapon. He did. He didn't just react rashly or harshly. We know Jesus isn't going to do that anyway, but he proved, I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to weave these cords together, and I'm going to make a whip out of it. And I don't know what his disciples were saying. They're like, Jesus, what are you doing? What are you doing? He sat and he made a weapon, and it says, and he drove them all out of the temple. Do you think he made the weapon just to put in his side so he looked like Indiana Jones for a little bit? No. I'm sure he used that weapon. I don't know if he used it on the people. I'm sure he used it on the cows and the oxen and whatever else. And the cows, probably not cows. Okay, the oxen and the sheep, and get them moving, get them out of there. And if you guys have ever worked with animals at all, you start taking a whip to them, they're going to start scattering, and there's going to be mass pandemonium. And there's going to be people yelling and animals going all over the place. And then he hit them at their heart when he went over to them and he threw over the money tables. Because their money was more precious to them than the people that they were supposed to be serving. We have this phrase that we throw around quite a bit. Us as Anabaptist people, we throw around the phrase that we are non-resistant. And we somehow get this concept and this idea that we are supposed to be non-resistant in every area of life. And Jesus modeled to us and exampled to us what true non-resistance looks like. And this is part of it. This is God Himself willing to engage in a battle. And I wonder how many of us, especially men here, would be willing to engage in a battle like this when we see wrongs being done against other people, because Jesus did this in love. Everything that Jesus did, he did in love. Everything. No matter what it was, he did in love. And when we see wrongs being done against other people, right now we're just like, well, I've got to turn my back. God is in control. And we walk away. And that is not what Jesus exampled to us. He didn't walk away here. He didn't walk away when he brought them, when the people brought him the woman caught in adultery. He didn't, whoa, I'm not getting involved in this one. I'm heading the other way. He didn't do that. And over and over and over again in Scripture, we see Jesus, saying, "Woe unto you, scribes and you Pharisees, you hypocrites!" He engaged in the battle. Because his Father wanted him to. Remember, whatever Jesus did, it was love in action. Everything he did was love in action. And I found out, well, we've known this for a while, but one of the things that makes Jesus the most angry, the most I want to engage in this battle, is religious counterfeits. Religious counterfeits. And Darren talked about in Sunday school this morning about the religious people who probably believed that what they were doing was good. Probably believed that this was the best way of doing it. And so sometimes in my own life I have to ask, I believe this way, but Jesus modeled it this way. Are you willing to stand up and say, that's wrong? I'm going to engage in the battle. If we do not encourage our young men to engage in battle when they're small, to do those dangerous things, they will never do it when they're older. It's not going to happen. We have Jesus willing to engage in battle with the woman at the well. Then you think, engage in battle with the woman at the well? Okay, he wasn't engaging in battle with the woman. He was engaging in battle with the system. He was going from Jerusalem to Galilee, and it is a 5-day walk. Everybody would tell you it's a 5-day walk. If you were a Jew, you would say it's 5 days to get from Jerusalem to Galilee. No matter how you slice it or dice it, it's 5 days. Jesus said, nope, it's 4. It's only 4. You know how it's only 4? Because we go through Samaria. And the rest of the Jews are like, no, 5, because we go around Samaria. So we had Jesus and his disciples saying, 4 days, okay, why bother taking the extra days? Not worth it. These people need love too. Through Samaria it is. So they walk into Samaria, and his disciples are going into the town to get some food because they're hungry, and Jesus is tired. Okay, he's a human as well. And so Jesus sits down at the well, and there's something you have to understand about this. In that culture and in that day and age, a husband walking down the street in public with his wife would almost never say a word to his wife. She would walk behind him, and he would almost never say a word to her. If you were a single man in public, you would never speak to another woman in public. Just wouldn't happen. Would not happen. It was against their social laws. So Jesus sits down. This woman, not just any woman, but a woman with a reputation that, quite frankly, most of us wouldn't stay sitting there, let alone have a conversation with her. Because Jesus knew her reputation. And he could have just come to her and said, "Woman, are you thirsty on the inside?" And we get this idea that's who Jesus is, and that's who we want him to be. But that's not who he was. He engaged in the battle. He engaged in conversation. "Hey, I'm thirsty. You want to give me something to drink?" And normally, in that day and age, a woman would have been like, "Whoa, what's this guy talking to me for? He's a little odd. I'm going to walk away." She didn't. She was pretty sassy. So she engaged in conversation back. And they had this conversation all about water, and she's like, "How in the world are you supposed to be getting water? You don't even have anything to get water with." And he's like, "Hey, you'd actually be asking me of water if you knew who I was." To which she's like, "Okay, there's something going on here. How about we change the subject? Are we supposed to worship in Jerusalem or here or where?" And Jesus is like, "Worship in spirit and truth. You missed the point. Woman, how about you go get your husband?" I find that funny, because Jesus knew she didn't have a husband. And she's like, "Well, I'm not married." "Well, technically, I don't know about that. You've had 5. And the one you're with now isn't your husband." And then all of a sudden she's like, whoa. Are you the Messiah? She recognized him. And Jesus, instead of saying, "Shush," he said, "You're looking at him." He did more in that moment for a woman than most of us will do in a lifetime for a woman. He engaged in the battle of the culture and said, "First of all, I'm going through Samaria. Second of all, I'm going to speak to the woman. Third of all, I'm going to meet her need when nobody else will." He engaged in the battle. He didn't turn tail and run. He didn't say, "Whoa, I'm out of this one." He was the image of God at war. God himself at war with the culture. First, we need to decide what we believe. We need to know what we believe and to better line up with the Word of God, because if it doesn't line up with the Word of God, it's an incorrect belief. Okay? Once we get that straightened out, we know what we believe, we stand on what we believe. And then when we see somebody standing on what you believe and standing on truth, our tendency today is saying, "Whoo, he probably just stuck his head out of a foxhole," and you back away from him because we're not willing to do the same. Jesus talked with the Pharisees about hand washing. The disciples are eating stuff without washed hands, and that's a big no-no. Actually against the law. You don't eat stuff without washing your hands. And Jesus knew that the Pharisees were grumbling about it. And he says, hey guys, about that whole hand washing thing. They're like, whoa. How does he know we were thinking about this? About that whole hand washing thing, you missed the point. And you guys are like whited sepulchres. You're all cleaned up on the outside, but the inside, you're rotten to the core. You see, he was not worried about being invited back. He wasn't. And we're so worried about our reputation that we're not willing to engage in the battle. Jesus Christ could care less. He says he made himself of no reputation. He cared less about his reputation. And where did it get him? It got him killed. People hated him so bad it got him killed. And I really wonder, I oftentimes wondered, if Jesus Christ were to walk into our presence today, he probably wouldn't be wearing a robe and sandals, okay, most likely, because he wore robe and sandals probably because that's what they sold at the market, okay? That's what they had back then. If you came in today, you'd probably be wearing pants and a shirt, all right? He would look like a person. And he would probably be rejected in the vast majority of churches. Because he would be calling out the intents of the heart. And we don't like that. So are we willing, as the image bearers of God himself, are we willing to say, yes, God, I will engage in war. And I'm not going to run from the unlovely. And I'm going to stand up and defend somebody who is defenseless. I'm going to reach out and touch the leper. Yeah, that was illegal. When Jesus touched lepers, illegal. And he did. Touched him. When he went into the synagogue and he spoke to the man with the withered hand, illegal. And Jesus said, I care more about the hearts of people than I do about all your silly laws. That's what he said. And he literally told the Pharisees, John chapter 21, literally told the Pharisees, you are more worried about keeping the traditions of men than you are about the widows and, as a matter of fact, your own parents. That's what he said. And he says, woe to you, hypocrites. So I'd leave you with a challenge. The challenge is say yes when God says fight. We're told to put on armor. You think we're not in a battle? We're in a battle. And we want to just ignore the battle. There's a battle for attitude. There's a battle for belief system. There's a battle for wrong thought processes, whatever it is. There's these huge battles. And we don't even want to fight them. We don't even want to fight our own battles, let alone somebody else's battles. You know, we look at our own battles and go, ooh, that's a tough battle there. I'll just put that under the shelf. And God calls us to fight. And then when we see others around us that are warring and in battle, and we don't know what to do about it, don't turn tail and run. And there are people in this room that I know personally who are engaged in some pretty serious and severe battles. Not just health, because that is this big battle going on right now, not just health, but wrong belief systems, wrong thought patterns, wrong beliefs about who they are and what they're created and designed to do. Let's not let each other down and drop our swords. Engage in the battle. Seek God together. So we're going to sit down and we are going to seek God together on this battle. Let's pray. God, I thank you that you have created us for war. And Lord, I pray that each and every one of us would accept your design and your creation for our lives. Lord, we thank you for the example of Jesus Christ. Thank you for your creativity in creation. Thank you that we look at creation itself and we say, wow, yeah, we're in a battle. Thank you for your example to us that we can fight. Lord, I pray that each and every one of us here would engage in battles for each other, those battles that we are fighting for each other, that we would not run from them. Pray that you would show us exactly how to fight and engage in that battle, where we want to be led by your Spirit and by your word. Thank you again for our church body here at Blandon. Thank you for what you are doing in and through us. We want your perfect will to be done in each one of our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.